Organizational meeting? Call to order the January 13th, 2025 tax budget hearing. Wait, this is not tax budget. This is, or are we doing tax budget and organizational in one? Okay. Tax budget hearing and organizational. Do you need to call the roll for this? Okay, because it's not on here. But
oh, it's not?
No, that's okay. It is.
Yeah.
Oh, call the roll. Sorry.
Mrs. Henners?
Yes.
Dr.
Here.
Dr. LeFay?
Also here.
Mr. Rager? Here. Mrs. Hartley?
Here.
Mrs. Mask?
Yes, here. Okay, we're going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Item number 2 is we're going to do our election of officers. We need nominations for president for this year. Did everybody see it?
I'd like to nominate Jody Mass.
Second.
Third it.
I'm sorry?
You wanted us to
I
talk.
did want you to talk. I'd like to nominate Stacy Hartley. So, there you go. Okay. Do we close nominations then? Is there, okay? And then we'll take the vote.
Yeah, do a roll for.
Are we allowed to have discussion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to be president?
I will do what's in the best interest of the board. And if this is what is in, you guys feel is in the best interest, then I will be more than happy to serve.
I'd be very happy with Jody Mass serving as president.
So
She's dialed in. She's got it all figured out with the superintendent and Mike and getting everything set up.
So I mean, it's really whatever. I just want to do what's best for the board and for the district. So if that is your wish, that's your wish. I mean, that's fine. But at some point, somebody else is going to have to be president. So. So, anyways, okay. Go ahead.
I just need a motion then for the nomination of Jody Mass.
So moved.
Second. All right, Mrs. Henners?
Yes.
Mr. Rager?
Yes.
Dr. LeFay? Mrs. Hartley?
Yes.
Mrs. Mask?
Yes. All right. We need nominations now for vice president.
I'd like to nominate Stacy Hartley.
Okay. Any other nominations for vice president? Okay. All right. Go ahead. Oh, okay. Okay. I'd like to make a motion for Stacy Hartley to serve as vice president.
Second.
Mrs. Hartley?
Yes.
Dr. LeFay?
Yes.
Mr. Rager?
Yes.
Mrs. Henners?
Yes.
Mrs. Mask?
Yes. All right. Thank you, everybody. We will now go to the tax budget hearing portion of our
Right.
meeting.
Yeah, so the tax budget's in there. I did work with Betty on this. This is I helped her last year. I did it. I had her look over it. She said everything looked great, so that makes me feel a lot better about it. There's 5 different schedules on it. The first one is a list of all of the taxes in the school district, and it's been updated with the new millage rates. The second part is the actual taxes collected at a forecasted look at FY26, and it actually goes into FY27. And that is for the general fund, the permanent improvement fund, the library bond, and the library fund as well. In here, on the library bond retirement, You can see the last two columns are zeroed out. That last payment is scheduled to be made in December of 25, possibly before that. But as of right now, the last payment is due in December. And another thing with the library agency fund, the bottom's all zeros. We get that money and we send it right to the library. So we're just the collector. The Schedule 3 is all of our other funds. So they're kind of grouped together, but there's a combination. If anybody wants to know the breakdowns of those, let me know. There's quite a few in each one. So you get Schedule 4 is the library bond breakdown. That is just showing that we owe the $291,000 yet, and that it will be paid off in December. And the last one is the tax anticipation notes, that we don't have any of those, so it's blank. And that's what I have on that, unless you guys have any questions.
And the question, Mike, was about the years, just to make sure I understand. So let's say look at okay, looking at our schedule here, like for general fund.
Yep.
So column 4.
Yep.
So fiscal year, it's July 1 through December 30th of 2024. So it was the first half.
Actually, what this looks at, I know it says 24 on there. It's actually for July 1 of 25. So it's looking at FY 26, and that's why
that's okay.
the 6th column goes into FY 27.
Got it.
It's
okay.
confusing. When I looked at it too, I was like, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me until I figured out what the dates were.
And so is that the fiscal year 26? Is that when it's collected? Then is that what it's about? Or
That's the amount that will be collected in the first half.
So that's
of fiscal year.
so it's because
Correct.
it's always the year.
Correct.
Okay.
We're on a fiscal year. This is based on a lot of this is a calendar year, so that's why.
Okay. Thank you.
It's always mixed up.
Thank you.
Or our fiscal year starts in July. I mean, there's.
There's a calendar year.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions for Mike on the tax budget? Okay. We will. Mike, do you need consent
It's part of
for that?
it's part of the consent.
Part of the consent. Okay. We're going to move then to item number 6, which will be board business. Or our schedule for things and authorizations.
Yes. Yep. So letter A is the schedule for 2025. Basically a regular meeting a month, and on there the notes show when we deviate from the third Monday of the month. Holiday in the first half of the year, holidays are pushing us to the 4th, and that's what it is. And then in July, in June we pushed it another week, so Mike has time to close that fiscal year to have one meeting instead of a special meeting to close. And then in July, we have it set for before the July 10th, because per Ohio Revised Code, before July 10th, an individual can get out of a contract. So if we're going to steal someone from another district, we want to hire them before that date so they don't have a problem exiting their current employer. And then in the fall, it rolls to the third Monday, so that's good. Letter B, our treasurer authorizations, those are the same.
Commencement, you have May 23rd on here, it's the 30th, isn't it? That's the letter we just got, yeah.
It's the 30th, okay, so that's it. Yeah, sorry. So then scholarship night will be later too. June is the same. Yeah, all right. I'll send out to you guys the correct dates, but thanks for catching that.
Yeah, we haven't seen that one.
that.
Yeah, I don't know. I know.
Letter B, our treasurer authorization. So these continue the same as last year and years past. No changes there. Same for letter C, the superintendent authorizations. D waives the actual reading of the minutes at the meeting, so long as you guys have them in advance, which Mike is very good about doing. Establishment of the Record Commission, our participation in OSBA, the annual membership, and the Legal Assistance Fund. And then E is establishment of a service fund for the board. I is authorization to purchase performance bonds. Civil Rights Act, that's a procedural requirement. Letter K just identifies the paper that we would use for public notices and those types of things, which is the Sandusky Register. The board authorizing us for engaging in legal counsel. We did one mid-year last year with relation to a special project, so they're now included in that. So change on that. North Point, serving as a hearing officer. So if I issue an expulsion hearing, the child or the family has the right to appeal that. And so then to expedite the process, North Point, a superintendent of North Point will conduct that for us. Appointment of the board liaison. So we have Grant, student liaison. We have Grant. Welcome. Continue. You ready for another year? Oh yeah. All right, good. I think you're doing an excellent job. So this is one where we can have a little discussion. Appointment of the OSBA legislative liaison. Ultimately, the big lift for this liaison is at the Capitol Conference. There's that public meeting that you attend and you vote and things like that. So last year it was Stacey Hinners. So don't everybody jump at once. But is there someone who'd like to be that liaison?
I only made one of the three, but the Capitol conferences, so I feel like I would not best serve.
Have a desire to. Are you?
I did not realize it was a Capitol conference, so I feel like this would be my chance to
Wonderful.
make it happen.
And then board liaison appointments. So we have the list that we've had in the past. The Hobie board member, that's a 2-year term, and Chris was appointed to that last year, so he's going to work through that, continue through that. But the other one's policy. Last year that was Stacey Hinners. Teaching and learning, that was last year Jody. Finance and audit, we had Stacy and Chris participating in that. Community facility committee, so that one kind of created throughout this, like during the school year, or not at the last organization, but at some point in the year. And that right now is Beth and Chris. Athletic booster and Hall of Fame. So Hall of Fame has become part of athletic boosters, which makes sense. And Jody was the athletic booster, and Beth, you were the Hall of Fame, so you two could have us, or we can have two on it. It's fine. And then the OSBA student liaison. So that again, Stacy Hartley, I think you were that. Yes.
What about joint recreation district? Are we still doing that, or are we not doing
Oh,
that?
sorry, I skipped over that. Yeah, joint
I've
rec.
been going to the meetings,
Okay.
you know.
Yeah, so we're still a member of the joint rec. We're a non-paid.
Right.
So.
Okay.
So unless there's any desire to change up who's doing what, we can advance forward 2024 into 2025.
I just feel very strongly that the community facility people should stay the same because you guys
We're in the middle of it.
yeah, you're in the middle of it and gain the trust of your community members who are on the committee. I just feel like that should stay the same for whatever it's worth. Throwing that out there.
Yeah, I'd be happy to help with athletics and boosters if you wanted
Yeah,
not to have as much like weight.
I mean, if you would like to do athletic boosters instead of me, I am happy for you to do that.
Okay.
And I will actually forward you. They have a meeting coming up this month, and I will forward that to you. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Happy to do that. Anyone else wanting to make some changes? Okay.
All right. And then the last Q, item Q, is the board priorities. So 2 years ago, working with the board, we set these. Last year at this time, we just reviewed and confirmed. That's what we're continuing to work on. And so they're attached there again. To remind, our mission is engage, equip, and empower every student to reach their full potential. And together we will ensure a safe learning environment, provide high quality education and experiences, maximize district resources, and then serve with compassion and integrity. So I think those are still the focus.
Relevant.
Yeah, I think they're still relevant and still our focus. But obviously it's open for discussion. And then that's what I have.
Need a motion for approval.
Second.
Really quick, I'm sorry to
No, that's fine.
mention things.
Yeah.
I feel slightly guilty because we had talked about not having a board member on the Hall of Fame, and so I hadn't been involved. And I know there was a lot of transition where they were like self-funding and doing things, and so it can start.
Yeah, I don't.
I honestly think that, because boosters have taken over the Hall of Fame, correct? Am I correct in that?
That's my understanding, yeah.
So couldn't the booster liaison just be the Hall of Fame liaison? I mean, if you're okay with that?
I'm more than okay with that.
Okay.
However, if at some point you need a second, because I know, stuff is coming to an end with Amy, and there may be some heavier lift there, so I'm willing to be a wingman if it comes to that. So maybe it can be an alternate.
Alright. Great. Okay, so we need a motion for approval for consent items 5 and 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good.
You guys did it already?
Alright.
Mrs. Henners,
Yes.
Mr. Rager,
Yes.
Dr. LaFay,
Yes.
Mrs. Mass.
Yes. Right. I'm going to then now go into our regularly scheduled meeting. Did you want to do board pictures before we start the next meeting, or do you want to do that at the end?
Let's do it now. A little break, stretch our legs.
Okay.
We can use the red wall. Yep.
call to order the Monday, January 13th, 2025 regular meeting of the Huron City School Board. If you could call the roll.
Mrs. Henners,
Here.
Dr. LaFay,
Here.
Mr. Rager,
Here.
Mrs. Hartley.
Here. Here. And we'll all stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. We need an approval of the agenda for tonight's regular meeting. So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Henners,
Yes.
Mr. Rager,
Yes.
Dr. LaFay,
Yes.
Hartley,
Yes.
Mrs. Mass.
Yes, thank you. Anyone in the audience have anything they'd like to bring before the board? William, anything from the city? Okay. All right, we will move along.
Yeah, so we have building department presentation. Adeline was going to have the middle school Lion King Junior perform. I don't see them right now. So I checked my email and I said we'd probably start at 6:30. So maybe they'll walk in the next 10 minutes. So maybe we move on to the next.
Sure.
If they do, then we
Sure.
jump back to it.
Sure.
Okay.
So we'll move on to Grant.
Hello. I don't have a ton, but this weekend, the boys swim team won their very first SBC championship in school history, so that is awesome. And I believe the girls got third, so good job to both of them. The second semester is starting up today, so that's of course a big deal. A lot of students have schedule changes and new classes are starting. And then last Saturday, I guess, mini cheer night was at the basketball game, and there was a great crowd there. And then rehearsals for the high school musical have started for the high school. That's all I have. Isn't it? Isn't that
Oh, it's High School
Yep.
Musical.
Oh.
I was trying to figure out how to write that. I didn't understand how to do that.
Great. All right.
The musical will showcase the new curtains that are at McCormick. So those got installed last week, and they look awesome. So I know Mark wrote about it in the annual report as far as no more material glue and clips holding it all together. It really does look nice. So that was great.
Dr. McDonald?
So also, I did write about this in the update this week, but I just want to say, since we're broadcasting, I wanted to say publicly thank you to our anonymous donor who deposited $10,000 in our Tiger grant fund at the Erie County Community Foundation right before the holidays. We got a notice of award, like, woohoo! I was over there for a BAC meeting this week and talked to their executive director, Beth, and I said, can we get you a thank you that you can then turn it to these wonderful people? And she said, yes, absolutely. So I just want to make sure people aware that we're excited. That's very generous. And what it does is it goes to our principal of that account. And then each year, Pam Provo, their admin assistant, asks us if we want our check. So we take that interest and we use that to award the Tiger grants for the staff. So to try out different fun things. So directly impacting kids in their education. So we're grateful for that and the people that love us to do that. So with that too, just some updates. Legislative Senate Bill 29 got some revisions also. So the admin staff working through those, that dials back a little bit of the notifications that districts need to issue with students and their devices. It does not dial back any of the student privacy work that we need to do, so we will keep doing that. And that is under so there's two acts. There's COPA and there's SIPA. So you have the Children's Online Privacy Act, and then you have the Children's Internet Protection Act. So COPA is where you will see user agreements if you are 13 plus, yada, yada, yada. If you're not, you're over in this bucket. So some of the things that our staff likes using with kids do not come with addendums, if you will. It's called Addendum G in the bill. But so Josh, he's behind the wall over there. He and Jordan and I are collecting these going forward with these different companies. They don't actually exist with those companies. Their default is if you use the product, then you agree to these terms. So we issued right before break and asked the parents to get back into Final Forms, read the documentation. There's about 40 different programs that this impacts right now. There's more. We just haven't sifted through all of them, to be honest with you. So we'll be updating that ask annually so that when parents go to fill out Final Forms for next year, that form is already in there. So at last check last week, we're about 64% of parents have completed that. So we're excited. Teachers will be making them aware of an updated process. Yes, they can use this. No, they can't. It would be a little wonky, right? So having conversations with kids too in the classroom, like, hey, if this is what we're going to use, then these are the conversations you need to have with your parents. So SIPA, we've been following all along to the T because that is your firewall protection and those kind of items. So when we went to, we had it desktops on my yards, but double down important when we went to Chromebooks going home to have that, make sure that the device meets those firewall compliance for internet safety, if you will. So that's where we have the Lightspeed platform is doing that work for us. And that is part of our thing that we have to follow with E-rate. If you want to use E-rate dollars, you have to comply with this, even though it's just good practice. So staff is working to complete cybersecurity training through Simvey. Over break, Josh pushed that product out. I think we timed it up. It's about a 27-minute quiz and 3 videos.
Is it different than what we did?
It is.
Oh.
Yeah.
That sounds a little bit easy.
Yeah. So, yes. So there's a quiz and then these 3 videos. It's kind of like a little soap opera. Like you want to figure it out at the end because the guy sets somebody up and all these different practices they're picking apart. Did it go out to them? Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
we got-
okay.
I didn't
Oh,
see
Three
it.
7-minute videos. And,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's what we did.
Yeah. School.
Yes. So that's what we said to staff for contact hours. Make sure that they get that done and accomplished so that we can get it. So I just want to know how the story ends. I want to have to catch the guy, right? So
Or if he feels so guilty.
he comes clean.
Seems
Yeah,
like he's got a conscience.
it does. Update on the science of reading trainings. That mandate of staff that needed to complete those. We're about 80% finished. We're trying to get those done by March 1st so that Mike can submit for reimbursement of payment and get that cleaned up. So we're trying to be really nice and say, hey, get this in by the deadline of the law says June 30th. And then after we did the first collection of certificates and payments and all that stuff, and thought actually how much time it takes, like end of fiscal year is not good for any of us. So in working with HEA, building principals, like getting the message out there, we had quite a few come in over the holiday. They completed them over break, so that was great. So, and then tomorrow there are a handful of us who will be attending a regional legal update over at the chapel with Western Herd. It is being sponsored and put on by our colleagues at North Point BSC.
Shout out to Leah Lacrosse too that she got invited to be a keynote speaker. That's pretty cool.
Yes, so she will be so Leah and I have to be back for the talent showcase over at Performance in the afternoon. So when Portland asked if she could use DD, we were agreeable on Leah's terms that she was back. So of course they were happy to have her. So yeah, she has a couple of sessions that she'll be doing for their staff, and I'm tagging along for whatnot she needs it. Order.
Thanks for doing.
Would you mind circulating like any sort of handout that they give you at the legal update? Please.
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
John Darius?
Right. So we are officially halfway through the fiscal year, which is wild. It's flying by. Total for revenues in all of our funds, we're at about 44.6%, and general funds 44.7%. Expenditures in all funds is 46.3%, and general fund is 44%. So we're trending a little bit under on expenses and revenues. If I did it correctly, we should, by the time the end of the year comes around, with our tax payment in February. We should be pretty close to what's projected. Donations for December, we got $300 towards the Athletic Hall of Fame. There is still an outstanding balance that they owe. This is the first donation I've seen come in for it, so hopefully that continues. Another grant for Leah Lacrosse, $5,000 for the Create, Build, and Learn Science through Engineering. So this is just approving those funds. And D is the annual resolution for the expenditure of federal funds. So that's on there as well. Additional updates, the audit is officially finished. It went really well. It was really smooth. They have this Dropbox, and really I kind of just dropped in the documents requested. Didn't hear a ton from them after that. There was one comment on the management letter for those laptops that we purchased. I put what he had commented. I took it out of 003. Hindsight, it was a federal grant, and I should have taken it out of 599. I'll know that going forward. So that was the only comment.
Well done.
Other than that, I was planning on having that capital spending plan for you guys this month, but with the holidays and then the tax budget and all that, I promise next month is the month I'll present it for you. And that is what I have, unless you have any questions.
We need an approval for the, or we'll do that in our consent.
Yep.
You ready?
Ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. All right, so non-items first. I want to start with every year in January, OSBA declares it, and rightfully so, Board Appreciation Month. And so in front of you is a little certificate of appreciation from OSBA. I don't think that certificate says enough of the work that you guys do for the Huron community and the students and staff that we serve. You guys make tough decisions, and you do that after being informed, having good deliberation, and then coming out with what's doing best for students. So thank you for your service, and thank you for continuing on. Also, there's a little gift from PTO. So they always like to, PTO is about celebration, so they wanted to drop that off. Rosie was going to be here, the president, and she had a conflict, so she dropped and ran, but that's there. Also, so continuing with non-agenda items, Woodlands traffic changes. So I think I shared in November that Chad, some bus drivers, and I met with the city's safety committee, and we talked about how to make better road traffic flow. And so then that went to city council for a first read and a second read, and now this week started the official signage is up, limiting parking and standing on Maple Way, and then also during drop-off and pickup times, limiting right-hand turns. So when you're coming up Lake Erie Parkway, you pick up or drop off your student, you now by law have to turn left and go back out Maple Way. Or I'm sorry, go back out, you can't go Maple Way, go back out Lake Erie Parkway. So we're hoping that that just helps with traffic flow. When our buses are coming towards Woodlands down Buckeye, we're not competing with families, going the other direction. So, Jen, our communication consultant, is working to push out communication from the district, and I know the city is communicating the same. So that. The other is at Woodlands, starting sometime in late November, is the Woodlands Walking. And so that's open to the community Monday through Thursday, 6:30 to 7, anytime school's open. So like next Monday is a holiday, school's closed, the building won't be open. But you can enter from the northeast corner of the building. So that's kind of by the parking lot. And when you first enter, you'll see these little cards in a pocket. And every time you go, you're supposed to punch it, put a stamp on there. When you have 10, you send it over to the central office where Luann processes it. And with 10, you get a car window decal. With 20, so 2 of these, you would get Huron City Schools pen. And then with 30, you get a voucher to go to Lucky Stone to get a Woodlands Walking t-shirt. So it says, I'm a Woodlands walker. So we're hoping that helps promote the program with staff as well as the community. And just a nice way to kind of promote something that the city, Parks and Rec, have been doing for a while, and that partnership between the two entities. So that's fun. And Luann did like all the lifting for organizing, creating these, and getting everything running. So I thank her for that. And then the other is we're continuing to prepare for a presentation in February about high school busing. This last 2 weeks, we've had some inclement weather, and so the high school principals are monitoring student truancies and absences if it's relating back to that difficulty of getting to or from school. We have had some families reach out, and we work to accommodate them. Most of the time, it's we need help getting to school, but then to go home, we're able to find a friend who gives us a ride. Mom or dad has the availability to drive, or if the sun is up and the kid can walk, so we're good. It's really that early morning when it's still dark out, and then potentially ice or snow that is creating kind of a concern. But we'll have more on that in February. All right. Moving to the agenda items, we have second reading of policies. And so these were all presented in December. Majority are about legislative changes. And so that's a continuation from the first read that happened in December. Operating standards. Letter B is the operating standards for students with disabilities. The Ohio Department of Education and Workforce has standards, operating standards. So the board can either adopt those, or we can create our own. I am highly recommending we adopt the ones that are approved through legal and everything else. So that's that. Here on Board of Trustee appointments, so again, because we're the fiscal agent for the library, it just flows through us. So Will Folger will continue as a trustee for the Huron Public Library. Letter D, Tiffin University, so like the BG and LC CCP partnership agreements that the board passes, we did have a couple students take courses through Tiffin, and so that's approving that. And then as we get all those lined up for the 25-26 school year, we'll advance them all at the same. We'll try to advance them all at the same meeting. Sometimes the colleges have different timelines for when they send us those agreements, so we're a little bit at the mercy of them. Letter E is revision or creation of 2 administrative job descriptions. One would be Director of Student Services. So right now we have a special ed coordinator. Director of Student Services is an expansion of additional services beyond just working with students and families of an identified student with disability. So this will still service that, but it'll do other responsibilities related to student services as well. And then the job description for an elementary school assistant principal. And so we're looking at that option. Brian's smiling.
I know.
Nice job helping cover some of those administrative tasks. But I'm hopeful that with board's approval of this job description, then we can get a posting out and start recruiting for an assistant elementary school principal. Certified, we have contract renewals for administrators, and then we also have approval for a teacher providing credit recovery tutoring services, and those are paid through a supplemental school improvement Title I grant. And then last item G is personnel. So the spring sports, the majority of the spring sports are on there. We still have 2 middle school track coaches and a little bit left of that girls head track split contract. So Matthew and coaches are recruiting to fill those, but these take care of those. The other one is a winter sport of a swim assistant. So the union contract says that with 20 or more swimmers, we, for liability coverage and everything else, should have a swim assistant. So we were able to find one, and it was funny. So over like a little bit before break, we had 2 students move in, and they were swimmers, and so that pushed us over the 20. And they moved in from, I want to say, Louisiana, and I guess they're really good swimmers. And I'm like, yeah, because they just envision a gator behind them chasing them. So, but anyway, so those are there, and then a few volunteers as well.
I was thinking about the ratio. I'm like, are you concerned about drowning? Because they can all swim.
Right, they can all swim. Yeah. That's like the easiest lifeguard job is the Olympics. Right? So, but anyway, those are the items from the superintendent.
That operating standards for education of children with disabilities, is that I kind of read it as it's a new handbook, like we have to adopt. Like it's new, or have you had a similar version?
So there's been similar versions before, and what then ODE realized is the language that they used in those documents was really big words, technical terms, and abbreviations. So this operating standard is one that it's smaller in scope. It's not totally all inclusive of everything because they don't. This is the document that we hand parents as far as here's your parental rights as a parent of a student with disabilities. So ODE wanted to make it readable for parents and understandable. And there's a lot of asterisks that say if you have additional questions, contact the Department of Exceptional Children. So there has been a document passed, and then with the rollout of this, there's a requirement that annually the board approves that. So it has to be done for this school year by March 30th, so that's why it's here now, and then annually by November 30th. So when we do the building handbooks, the building student handbooks, we'll see this again, and until DEW has a revision, it'll continue to be this June 2024. So my first 2 years here, so last year and the year before, I was on a BASA subcommittee for exceptional children, and they came and did a pretty extensive presentation on this, and so that's why I feel a little more comfortable or knowledgeable about it. And then my former, as a student service director and special ed teacher, I have a pretty good understanding. So yeah, but that's what that is, yeah. So, yep.
Great. We need a motion for approval for items 5 through 7. So moved. Any questions, discussion?
Just out of curiosity, is this the first time Tiffin's been involved in CCP? Do they have some classes that the other two didn't offer, or how did that?
So the way, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Ohio legislature has structured CCP is students can decide which university they want to go to. So I don't know what student or course they took, but it might have been something unique to Tiffin, or they intend to go to Tiffin beyond, after graduation. So they wanted to make that connection sooner. But they sent it over, and as far as it's drafted, it aligns with the other ones that we approved. So yeah.
Really curious. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, discussion?
Mrs. Hartley,
Yes.
Dr. LaFay, Mrs. Henners,
Yes.
Mr. Rager,
Yes.
Yes, thank you. All right, we'll move on to number 9.
So we have first reading of some policies. So just as a reminder, obviously the board, but to the public too, we've been doing the pattern of we have a first reading, and then the next month we have a second reading with action. That gives everyone, the board and the public, time to really digest those policies and see what's being changed. And prior to coming to the board for a first reading, me, the administrative team, and then Stacy as the board's liaison, we review those. So it takes time. And OSBA issues quarterly policy update recommendations. So there has been some recent legislative changes, and I know people might be anticipating where's that policy to align with the law. Talking with OSBA, they are working on that for their February quarterly issue. So with us having a late February meeting, we may be able to get that first reading in February, if not February, then March. So but these are policies that we really worked through in December, and now they're ready for presentation to the board for first reading. Positive behavior interventions and supports. Our policy is out of date with legislation, and so this updates it, and it really reframes that positive behavior and interventions as what are we going to proactively do to minimize, students with aggressive behavior, minimize those to frame a positive environment for the school as opposed to punitive. The other GBCB is staff conduct. So this is one that is already in place. The staff conduct aligns with the Code of Professional Conduct. So any employee that has a license or a permit already is covered under this. What the policy change is doing is expanding to cover all employees because not all have a license. And so it's really just setting that foundation is equitable for all employees, and this policy makes that clear for them. Assuming next month it would be for second reading and approval, there would then be informational, educational messaging that goes out to all staff, so they're aware of that. And then the last one, BCD, executive session, I think it changed one word from, yeah, so it's a OSBA recommended change, and it wasn't anything over, like, so.
And that says BCD, and then on the title of it, it says BBC. So it's right on the screen.
Thank you.
I just have a real quick question too
yes.
about staff conduct. Is this staff conduct similar, the same, different from what we hold our coaches to?
Correct. This is the exact same. So our coaches have a PAP that's issued through ODE. So this is the same standards for them, those 9 standards.
So whether you're an employed coach or a volunteer coach, you're held by the same staff conduct
That's correct, yes.
policy. Okay, great.
And yeah, so work with Matthew to make sure coaches are aware and informed. They should be already, but yeah, good reminders. Sorry.
Item 9 in that, out of curiosity, where it says staff use technology in a responsible manner, does that come? Technology school issue.
I would say it's comprehensive of it all. Yeah. So.
Social media, so big First Amendment rights to website boards, so that brings up a whole different analysis depending on what the content is.
Sorry, so letter B is the stakeholder facility committee update. So I guess I'm looking at Beth and Chris.
Sure, I can talk. So we had an update meeting yesterday where the different committees talked, and there's a lot of good discussion. The first group was the sorry, I'll turn the page here. Voter registration we really didn't talk much about yet because we're not quite to that point yet. Future McCormick, there was a lot of discussion about whatever happens, the building, people want to save the building. So there might be a lot of different ways, like it doesn't have to be our school, right? There's different ways that can happen, but there's a lot of desire to keep McCormick in some form or fashion. The marketing committee discussed a lot about the like videos to help promote what led us to this point, like what the current schools are, what the work we've done already to where we're at. And they discussed that with New Departure Films and then another consultant for advertising and marketing going forward, like even heading in towards the levy committee as we. Then we talked about current facilities, future space funding. The future space was kind of let's wait till we get a little further too. But in funding and current facilities, what was discussed was the options we talked about with the 6 to 12 facility and renovating Woodlands, or we did discuss a fully new PK to 12 again because that was one of the options we were discussing last year. And then there's a new option that the group is talking about, and it seemed to have a lot of positive response yesterday, and that's probably the way we're going to go forward a bit more is the some form of renovating the high school site, Woodlands, a new wing for the middle school, either one of the two or both, like splitting grades up, and then additional amenities with that, which could include things like auditorium, field house, or whatever. I mean, to be determined, but additional. And that, rough estimations without AVG looking, we were kind of like it might be similar to that 6 to 12 renovating Woodlands cost in the ballpark. So with that, I think James is going to talk to AVG about getting some maybe more concrete information on that option and bringing that back to the committee. And then also with that, we met last week with Dr. Brodkey at EGSU, who teaches surveys and other like statistics, I think, classes, and she talked with James and I about the type of survey we want to do to get some more public feedback. And we're looking at, she suggested doing like the snowball method, so we'll be using like, say, the board and that facility committee and the people in it, and then they fill it out and then send it to 5 or 10 contacts they think will respond, so you kind of get this snowball effect, or you know, where it's rolling down the hill a little bit, and then it's coming direct from people involved instead of the school just saying, "You have a survey," you know. And she also gave us ways to do that and types of questions and how to keep it really short. So I think as that other option gets defined more and we get some more information there, we'll probably look to get that survey put together. And she's offered help with her class and stuff if they're still in session. If we get, did I miss anything?
No, I think it would just clarify a little bit because I was really involved in the marketing committee things, and I just want to clarify that we're trying to tee it up so that anything that we're using, there would be a separation, and the levy committee would be able to use it. That's I think what you were trying to say.
Yeah,
Just so there's no concern there.
So there's like some common material that.
Yeah, and they could be accessible, and there wouldn't be any conflict.
Has anyone spoke with Joey Castle yet? Any budget guns to get a sense of timelines?
Yeah, so Jen and Joey met last week, and then the two of them walked around the buildings to see potential, like, you know, shots and stuff like that. So yeah, he's working on some of that foundational work, and the idea is with these district promotional videos, similar to what we did in 2018, where we promoted each of the 4 buildings. There'll be 4 products, and each one will focus on one of those strategic priorities that we have. So we have 4 strategic priorities, and so each one will focus on that. The intro and the conclusion will probably be the same for each of the 4, and then the meat of it, like a hamburger, the meat of it will be about one of those strategic priorities. And then, like Beth said, you know, he has all that content, and then if there's another group that wants to use it for other projects, it's available. So,
Is there an opportunity for him to do some footage of the facility committee meeting and showing what's going on with that whole situation? I just think it'd be neat if we're going to use it for a promotional thing that people see that it's people in your own community that are heading this up.
yeah, I would say anything's possible. So if there's something like a special event happening or something that we want him to capture some footage of, between Jen and I, we need to let him know so he can get here with his cameras and stuff.
Just some ideas. I'm not looking at it, but
I was thinking that he's so good at bringing things out of people the way he does his videos. I just think it'd be wonderful if he could even do some real small vignettes of people that are on these committees and just get.
well, we did talk about that in interviewing different, like a parent maybe that's new to the district and their angle. Someone who's retired who doesn't have a child in the school, and why would they maybe be invested? And there was some. The other thing the marketing committee did that wasn't brought up was we reached out to a consultant firm who could potentially help us in the future when it is time to put a levy committee together, and they would levy in how to reach out to the community for funding, etc. So it's a little bit premature for that, and but we're just trying to lay all the groundwork.
Look, you guys are making progress.
Yeah, this last meeting was the most encouraging, I think, because things are kind of creeping along, and then like expanding ideas, and had to contract back, and it's getting very real.
That's wonderful. Executive leaders goal check.
Yeah, so we're, as Mike said, halfway through the school year here, and so just a reminder: in September we set goals between Mike and I, and so I don't know, Jody, how you want to kind of share this out. I think doing it in public is good, so the public sees the feedback and things like that. So I don't know if you want me to start or you want the board to start. Or
Go ahead.
Okay.
Start, that's fine.
I have some notes. So the first one is about aligning across districts and departments to improve the functions of the district. So just thinking of a couple examples of what's been happening so far. From an academic and student perspective, Sources of Strength is in all three buildings, and that's each building's doing it in their own way, but they're doing it under the same framework as Sources of Strength. So middle school and high school has adult and student leaders that are leading different activities and building that support network within the campus. At Woodlands, once a month they're meeting with Sandy for like an elective or a specials class, and she's presenting to the kids different concepts and helping them work through that. And I know that Brian and Sandy are looking for ways to engage the staff to carry that through in the classrooms more than just a one-touch period a month. I just remind the board, as far as for alignment across building departments, that one Huron mindset that I brought in and we continue to use as one of our anchor points as we make decisions and move forward. For me, another one I'd like to point to is the classified staff, the support staff. We have a lot of our regular staff subbing in different areas. So bus drivers who are off midday and we need someone to help in the kitchen, they're there helping. Custodians who maybe work a double shift because otherwise the classrooms won't get cleaned for the next day. So we have a lot of classified staff that are committed to the success of the district. I mean, I'll take credit for it, but it's really, the leadership of Chad, the union leadership, and the employees themselves. But and then the last example for that alignment is the new leadership in the various departments. So we have our activities and athletics director who's growing into his role. Really, social media is a strength of his, and he's been promoting events and creating that positive student experience. And he's going to build upon that. And then obviously our technology department had a whole new staff, and there was really with new staff you anticipate an implementation dip. There really wasn't. Those guys came in the first week. They had to repair the phone system that went down, and it hasn't gone down since. So they build things, they fix things, and they make sure it's done right. And those two in that department are tightly aligned with focus on security, so cybersecurity and all other technology security, as well as instruction. So how is technology improving instruction and learning and those? So, so those are excellent in how we're going with that. Do you want me to go on to the next goal, or do you want?
What did you want us to?
Yeah, I guess for me, I just so that goal of strengthen alignment across the like, am I hitting it in the right ways? Is there anything I'm, do I have a blind spot that I need to be illuminated for, or is there something I should put more emphasis on?
Okay.
Or that's what I'm looking for.
Sure.
And maybe
Okay.
it's going well. Keep going. So
Yeah, I personally, don't know how often you are in buildings and, seeing Ryan or seeing Mark or, obviously you're here, so I would think you would run into Tim quite often. But I think, you having the goal of strengthening alignment, that obviously means strengthening, your relationship with the building principals, with, teachers in the building. But I think that's a fantastic goal. I think the more you're present, and not in a I'm your boss present way, but I'm here to support you. I'm interested in what you're doing. You're doing a great job. I think those things are really important, and I think that's what you are doing. So
Right.
yeah.
Appreciate the examples you gave. I was thinking like one thing when I saw that, and you really helped kind of pull together the work that you've been leading and doing and ideating to show how it's really all leading up to that objective. Thanks.
I remember in the check-in on a form we used with On Target, right? if you're on target, and or if you're behind, you would note that, right? So I mean, I would think this we would want to report as on
So I think that's a great goal.
The goal,
set the goal already. So
Yeah.
we're just checking.
Yeah.
Goal 2 is talks about engaging the Huron community to strengthen connections between the districts and other organizations. So I just want to remind everyone that for November's PD Day, we had Second Harvest come and facilitate the poverty simulation, and workers at the various stations or tables were from different community entities. So not only does our staff get to interact with those individuals that they might know exist but don't always interact with, it also gave those providers an opportunity to meet with our staff and see how this programming could help inform their work as well. So I thought that's an excellent example. Mike and I continue to meet with, have the monthly meetings with the city and township leaders, just making sure we're all rowing in the same direction, with projects that we share, and, we share constituents. Member of Rotary and continue to do those activities as well. But also really for students and families, resources for students and families. In the summer, we started working with Family Health Services to have the mental health counselor on campus, and she, as we expected, is doing an excellent job, and just making sure she has the resources and connections that she needs to be successful. Also at Woodlands, the Parent Cafe is one that Sandy brought in, and Sandy's been helping facilitate, but helping parents make connections with others, and knowing that they're not alone, that they're trying to work with their children and raise their students. So, and then the last example would maybe come back to some finance. So Mike and I have been meeting with the county auditor as some of his property valuations and 20 mil floor impacts have come to surface, and we're exploring that white paper as far as what are we doing with those additional resources. When somebody asks, we can point into that, and it's clear and transparent that we're going to maintain our strong fiscal responsibility, and every dollar counts. You can only spend it once, so we need to make sure it's in the right areas. So those are the examples I thought of as far as at this point in the year.
Just to finish up that thought on the county, one entity you may want to take with this county treasurer. On paper, he should have no role in like the funding. In reality, he's stepping into advocacy on the issues of like the taxes and schools and all this sort of stuff. So, I mean, we might as well get in those rooms and hear what's being said.
Yeah, and he's a Huron alum, so he's open to talking with us. I've seen him at different events and things like that. Yeah. So, but that's a good point. Yeah.
I think some of your communication pieces, like the article that was in the newspaper, I think all of those points too for hitting community in different ways. I appreciate that.
The last one is about supporting the community facility committee. So obviously I'm attending those meetings, helping them out with different data and information and perspective sharing. So I'm hearing from them, and I share a little bit of like how behind the scenes or how the sausage is made type perspective, and I think that resonates so that there's a more informed decision moving forward. Really, participation in that has helped me reflect on what are some best practices that we can get better at. And it was talked about here tonight, but just general positive promotion of the district. So we have that video production project moving forward, and that's really something that came out of those conversations of like, we just need to be continually telling our story and all the great things that Huron does for the students, the families, and the community. And I can read my scribble on the other one. So, but yep. So as far as that community facility, I guess those were my thoughts.
I think that's so important that you're part of the community facility committee. I think, when people see that you're engaged in this and you're making time to be present, I think that goes a long way. I commend you for doing that. I think that's really important.
I can't imagine you not being a part of it. You and Mike. I mean, it's future, and I think it's extremely helpful. So thank you.
Yeah, it takes time. I mean, for all four of you, it takes time away from your families, and it takes time to do it. But it's so important. It really is.
All right. So along the same lines as James, my goal one for me is presenting a clear financial picture for the district. Walking through this last 5-year forecast with all the changes and the new valuations and everything was exciting, to say the least. It was a good financial picture. Another thing would be like working on the white paper with James, how we're going to use these additional funds, and then meeting with the auditors has been really helpful for me, and making sure that I have a clear picture of our tax collections moving forward. I'll just do all three goals and then anything you guys have. 2 is working with the finance committee. We reformed that committee. We filled it with staff members, administrators, community members. So that's been really helpful. We had them vet like the white paper and the cash balance policy. I think moving forward with that committee, we'll be looking at the emergency levies and what we're going to do with the substitute and all that kind of stuff. So there's more work to come in that. Goal 3, the facility committee, providing some data for them, and then working with the municipal advisor to get millage rates and all that. And I think what's going to end up is that the facility committee and the finance committee are going to probably work pretty close together moving forward. So I think that those two will intermix. And then the capital improvements budget, which we'll have next month. So.
I'd just like to start by saying, Mike, you have made this transition from, former treasurer to you seamless. And you're really on target and doing a fantastic job. So thank you for that. It makes our job a lot easier. And I think the working relationship that you have with the central office is really great. So it just makes everyone's day so much better. So thank you for that.
Restarting the facility committee or the finance committee. Sorry, which committee am I talking about? I think we've had a good start to that. A couple meetings so far, and there's like you said, there's a lot of things that are going to come our way with the buildings and emergency levies coming. But Mike's made that pretty easy with the group we put together, and always has like the answers, or if doesn't, he gets back really quick. So that's been helpful because there's a lot of questions get tossed around in that meeting about what's legal on levies and changing things, and you have to go back and look sometimes. You don't have the answer, but he's been willing to get those answers pretty quick usually, so that's been helpful. And we've thrown a lot of ideas at him and asked him a lot of numbers, I think, especially myself. But yeah, so, thank you.
I think you take school finances. We have people on the committee that are like in financial world, and still school finance is a whole other thing. And the way that we receive our funds, the way that funds are spent out, the way that you have to account for the funds. And so even like if it's the little, the way James does, periodic communications to us, and then what you do for us before a board meeting, which is kind of like, a summary of highlights of what is kind of notable in your report and what's going on with finances. So I think it's to me, it's like demonstrating an ability to take that really nebulous and complicated thing, but put it in terms that anybody can understand. Whether we're on finance committee, whether we're sitting on a board, or you're a person in the community, and just make it accessible. I appreciate that.
I think we're entering into a period. We've been in this period, but I think it's going to accelerate here this next year to stuff's going to change, right? There's going to be you can know what you know now about school finance, and it could get chucked out the window here in the next year or two. And so I think that needing to remain on top of things, adaptable, about that one goal really is like a sustainable financial strategy, right? And so we've got to good fortune this, or at least we've been on the right side of the flip this time around, but we know that
Right.
that's probably not how it's going to work out every time. So I think we're definitely on target and interested to see, where we go, but in taking in mind that like what's on some of these sheets may or may not be on there, 6 months or 12 months from now. Thank you.
And just as a note, I just like to thank Julie. I know you're not having to do a goal or having evaluation, but you are part of this team, and the work you do for curriculum, Chiasm, for test scores. You're such a cheerleader, and I just want to thank you for that because you're a very important part. So, yep. All right. New business. I did ask Chris if anyone has new business they want to bring, but I did ask Chris. He had sent out an informational email this morning, and I asked him just to briefly summarize what he sent out for us in new business. I just wanted it to be brought in a public setting so the public realizes that we are still engaged in this subject of GPA and weighted versus non-weighted. So, go ahead.
Sure. And first, I want to make sure it's clear to the staff and the team that put that presentation together that there's a lot of very good points in there, and really appreciated the work on that and learned a lot from that. Going through this process with a senior myself and doing some just reading websites and things like that, I started like kind of researching more of the universities in Ohio, which most of our kids will go to. I could have gone Michigan and stuff, but it takes a lot of time. Once you start digging in their websites, it's very hard to find stuff sometimes. So I put together the PDF I put together is 25 universities. I kind of went down the list of U.S. News, how they rated them. I skipped a few here and there, but out of the 25, 7 I couldn't really find anything on like, do they use GPA test scores, whatever. So those ones just say like not applicable. 1. So most of them they do. They're out of the other ones, they mostly do list what GPA they use for their highest merit scholarship, like the automatic scholarships they give based on how you did as a student. Some are GPA or test scores, and some are just GPA. I didn't really indicate that. I just put if they had GPA or not as a criteria. So that's the one column there is, what's the requirement. I just put if they have GPA as a requirement. I didn't really look at the test scores. GPA for the highest level merit scholarship was the next column. So I put like what their min GPA is for their highest scholarship. And then the opportunity for weighting dollar value I have on there, which is the 5th column. That's the difference over 4 years from the highest level to the next one down. So like if the highest qualification level is 3.9 and the next bucket is 3.6 to 3.9 and gets this much money, that's what I put there. Because like if we're not weighting, they're getting less money, right? So like now in some cases it could even go 2 buckets down because it depends how many honors courses you took, right? How much your GPA goes up if you weight it and so forth. But I just did the next one, just to baseline it. So if you look at this, out of those 25, that means 7, 8, so 17 of them have GPA as a requirement, and only one of them in Ohio recalculates for weighting, and that's Miami of Ohio. So they will take everybody to the same standard. So they actually weight, if you're unweighted, they make you weighted, and if you're weighted, they leave it alone. A lot of them recalculate GPAs based on if, a school reports like a 6.0 scale, they recalculate you to a 4. There's a number of them that do that. But most of them just take the highest GPA reported. So, but when you look at their admission side, what the interesting thing is, and that's what a lot of the, the staff presentation, when they look at the admission side, they also do the holistic review for admissions, but then when it comes to merit scholarship, they just look at GPA. And they only look at like whatever's reported. There's only the one in Ohio that recalculates. There's others around the country that do, but I tried to focus on where our students are more likely to go for the most part. So when you look at that, it's kind of interesting that and there's some of these schools when you look on here, like Dayton, their highest level, you have to have over a 4.0. Like you can't, like 4.0 doesn't even qualify for their highest level. It has to be over. So that's, it's interesting. There's a couple like that where it has to be over. There's a few where it's 4.0 gets you the highest level, and there's a few that are even like a 3.9 or something like that. Some of them, when I have a question mark there on the opportunity for weighting, that means they didn't like show they might have a range of merit scholarships, say 2,000 to 6,000 a year, but they don't show the division of the delineated, or if you will. So that that was interesting. In the email, there's also a couple quotes and articles I found, and a couple screenshots from the two of the screenshots are right from BGSU's webpage. 95% of BGSU scholarships only look at your GPA. And then they had an FAQ, what GPA do you use for admission and scholarship consideration? We will use the highest GPA reported on an official high school transcript for admission and scholarship consideration. This could be weighted or unweighted. Non-4.0 skills will be converted to a 4.0. That's what most of them do. And there was a couple of quotes from one of the articles from like Kent State admissions leaders that said, basically the same thing. And then just one more real quick as something of thought. I did get an email back. I called a couple of places like Cincinnati. They also do, for merit scholarships, they do a holistic review. They don't list the GPA. And so I guess that's maybe a second one in Ohio that doesn't quite. And then Dayton did give me an email back. Donnell Wiggins, Associate Vice President for Strategic Enrollment Management and Dean of Admission. They only adjust GPAs to ensure they are on a 4.0 scale, applying a weight if the high school provides it. The same GPA is used for both admission and a scholarship consideration. While some high schools may not use weighting, they may still provide a weighted GPA on their transcripts. However, this practice is not common. So there is some evidence of, some schools doing both. Anyway, that's
some high schools providing a non-weighted and a weighted.
because they want to do like maybe we are with a weighted, unweighted system, but they're
But
finding a way to
more
provide.
competitive with merit rewards. I think in summary, I think what Chris is getting at, really, thank you for all that hard work, is that without weighting the GPAs, our kids are getting a lot of money left on the table for merit scholarships. And I think we're wondering, he and I were just having a personal conversation because we have seniors, so we're in the thick of it right now. And I loved the presentation that they gave us. I thought it was really, I learned a lot as well. But it was kind of interesting that there was a balk at, can we do weighted and non-weighted? And I'm wondering if we can revisit that. If you could give a non-weighted GPA and then in parentheses give a weighted and continue with non-class rank and all, but just provide it for those families who want to use it. We'll say at the facility meeting last night, I got approached by an individual who was representing 24 individuals spanning 8th grade and freshman year right now, parents who are planning to bring up this concern again and hadn't realized that we had just addressed it. So we directed them to the conversation that we had posted and just previously had, but I just thought it was kind of interesting.
So our students, even though they're applying for scholarships because of our non-weighted system, they aren't being considered for some of these other level merit scholars.
They're getting some merit money, but there's a lot of money being left on the table over it.
Are we distinguishing between institutional support versus private or foundational support in this? Because the institutional support, right, the university is going to decide what the demographic of a student they want, so they're going to offer a discount to a student versus another student who may be almost identical but maybe doesn't hit the demographics, so it may not get the same
But that's a lot of
offer.
the other scholarships. So most of them advertise their merit as strictly GPA or test score.
So I'm asking, yeah, so when we
So
say,
I that's all I looked at was
Yeah.
just those merit, institutional merit.
well, but merit scholarship, so a merit scholarship is based on a GPA, is based on you're in this, whatever top percentage of your class. What I'm trying to distinguish is, are we looking at, so colleges have their own money that they call scholarships. It's not what I think most of us think of as scholarships. Institutions will discount somebody's tuition on their own without any additional money from an outside. So there's no donor who gave money for it. It's not coming from a community foundation. When we have our big scholarship event, right? Like, so it's totally separate. So I was trying to understand if, with looking at the universities, if they're talking about, if this is reflecting their institutional discounting that they're doing, or we're talking about like community private scholarships, foundation scholarships, where there's a disadvantage there.
I think this is the institutional. I mean, they listed as merit scholarships on most of their websites, but it's their discount they're giving you for having a 4.0 or 3.5.
Can you give me an example of what, like what you're talking about, an institutional scholarship, as opposed to, community? I mean, because, my kids all graduated from Huron, but they all graduated under the weighted grades and class rank. So we didn't deal with what some of these parents are dealing with right now. And so it's interesting to hear that, like, institutions will discount. So give me an example. I just need an example of that. It just, yeah.
Julie, your microphone.
$4,000 merit scholarship that basically is just a reduction in the tuition cost.
Does she have a weighted GPA?
She did not. Okay. But also, like, if her ACT would have mirrored that same bracket or above, she would have gotten. So they took the best out of GPA or her ACT. So that institution also said, here you log into this system, here are all these scholarships that you qualify for. Fill it out. There's an essay. There's the dates, right? So those are two different ways in which to get money. If I'm understanding Chris correctly, this is the first part of the conversation. So
This is institutional, is what you're talking
Just
about.
basically the discount. A lot of them call it merit scholarships when you go on their websites, but it's automatically qualified and they give you a reduction.
Right. So when, I'll use Meredith as an example. She, got accepted to several different colleges. It seemed like more of the smaller private schools offered lots of scholarships. Ohio State, it's hard to have them offer scholarships, but they will send you, like, here's a list of things because of your major or your interest. You can apply for these additional scholarships if you'd like, which is what you're talking about. They're not institutional, but they're maybe a corporation or a community thing, or, okay. All right.
I can ask Chris just a clarifying question. So, date above a 4.0 for merit. So, just in your comment section, it recalculates to a 4, but does not change weighted or unweighted. Can you help me understand that note a little better?
A lot of the schools will do this, and that's what he had in his email there that I read. Was some of the high schools have, like, maybe on a 5 scale or a 6 scale or some of these weird, different things. They take them all back to a 4, but they don't apply weighting or unweighting. Like, so like if like we're off of a 4 and we're unweighted, so they'll just take, like, say you had a 3.8, done. But if you're on a 4 and you have a 4.4, they use 4.4. If you're on this 5 scale, they take your transcript and figure out
whatever the number on the transcript is.
Yeah, but if the transcript says out of 5 scale or some of these other options, they'll rescore it to a 4, so they're at least. But they don't apply weighting to that either. They just rescale it. So, and it seems like a lot of at least what I could tell and gather, the best I could, a lot of the universities act in that manner.
So they're unweighting the weighted grades.
if their base is not 4, like even if you weight, it's still a 4.0 base, right? Even though you might give
It's
a class
a
of 5.
4.0, so then you're going to say, and a lot of them distinguish,
Yeah.
like, because an honors is like a half a point, an AP course is a full point. So to that point of like the 5.0 students, you know, our students would still be at a disadvantage because we have 5 AP classes. In some of these schools, they literally have over 30 AP courses that students can take. So they have a full composition of 5 point. Every single class they're taking is a 5 point. If we were to do
Right.
this and be consistent with others, it still wouldn't be.
But on those
Fair.
automatically qualifying ones, they're not competing with anybody but the scale.
So do we
If you
know
just got to
that
get over a
those-
4.0, I mean, like I know on some of these you can go on their calculator, and I played around and put like 3.8, and it gives me this much money. 4.0 gives you this much money, and then 4.1 giys you another 4,000 on daily. Like boom. Like yeah, I know.
Let me.
But I checked other ones too. That wasn't just where my students interested, but it's some of them have calculators, some don't. Some will tell you, some won't. So,
It's-
but
Okay.
yeah.
So do we know for sure if somebody says like, oh, it has to be I don't know, where's one in here, that it has to be something that's above 4.0. Do we know are we sure? So if it's somebody who is all AP and there's somebody that's a 5 point, but
So-
basically they've had straight Bs. So they're going to say you're the same as somebody who's unweighted, took all AP, got all A's, and is a 4.0. Is that what they're saying?
On theirs and Ohio Northern's calculator, yes. Like if you go on their calculator and you put 4.0 in, it'll say the first scholarship number, and then if you change it to the 4.1, and it goes up.
So can I
You know what I
have
mean?
one observation and then maybe just a question more for Julie and James. And one observation is the role of CCP in this whole hot mess of the storm. And when you think about it, let's get real about what's always follow the money, right? And what's driving this. What's driving this is, by the way, Ohio Wesleyan University, where I went, is not on this list. And if U.S. World Reports has it below some of these.
No, that's one of the ones I skipped because they didn't have it listed on their
Come on.
site. I'm sorry.
Audience, tell your audience. You will see, though, it's funny because you will see there's a consortium. Ohio Wesleyan's part of that consortium with Oberlin, Kenyon, Worcester, Denison, where it's a much different way of
I went on
looking
their
at
site,
academic
but I couldn't-
success. But anyway, my point is this: these colleges that are making money, sure bet money, our money, from CCP, that they've got to be careful what they're doing here, right? Because they're all fighting for funds right now. They're just they're in financially, a lot of these colleges are in just precarious position, if not more so than we are. So they need that high school CCP, right? And they've got to be real about it because different schools on this list, the quality of their CCP classes, some of them I'm sure are great, and some of them probably don't hold a candle to what happens in these hallways here, right? So I mean, that to me, that's what a lot of this is just like. Everybody's grabbing their money where they can. It to me, it's a shame if GPA is the sole factor, but I get it is what it is. Now here's my question or my thought: is there any type of entity? And I appreciate the work you did, I really do. But is there any sort of entity that does consulting on this or reporting, or there's got to be somebody who does? I mean, there's got to be somebody who
It's so subjective. I mean, I pulled up for the top high schools and what everybody does.
Walnut
And it's
Hills. Yep.
different. Well, there's number 1,
Yep.
Walnut Hills, Bexley at number 2. But you look at the percentage of the kids then too that are taking, Walnut Hills, 92% of them are taking an AP class.
it
we
runs
just
like a
don't
high level
have-
college. I mean,
Yeah, and we don't, it just would be a different, it's a whole different thing. If we want to say, then I guess my take is it's so subjective across the board, whether we're talking about the colleges and the money, the high schools and the weighting. There seems to be some consistency with, half a point for an honors class, a full point for an AP, but what is there's a statutory weighting for CCP, isn't there? If we decide to weight, CCPs in all these schools weight differently.
there, we go back to my point, which is let's follow the money. CCP's wagon is the dog, you know what I mean? And everything else is around it. I will say for like having done this, twice myself, and then now with Nate in college, and he didn't have the advantage of like weighted grades and that sort of thing. There's a lot of other financial aid available. Some of it merit based, some of it financial need based, the combination of both. But especially in your private institutions, a lot of them have these like scholarship levels, but it's just like a fraction of the actual assistance that you get, most of which you don't pay back. And I'll throw out Ohio Wesleyan as a, like when I went, it was $32,000 a year. Jim and Fran weren't writing a $32,000 check. You know what I mean? Like I got a scholarship, but then you got a like grants that you didn't have to pay back. Some of those were need based, some of them were just based on your activities or what you were going in after. So I guess the takeaway in the immediate for folks who have seniors is go after everything, right? Like don't be afraid to apply for a school, and seek out whatever, even if the price tag looks daunting, because especially these private schools, a lot of them, I went to Ohio Wesleyan cheaper than I could have gone to Bowling Green as an undergrad.
I mean, I'm not really making this argument for my child because I doubt anything would change in time. I
Right.
think I'm here. I think I really need to go back. Thank you. I'm just chiming in because it absolutely, obviously, take advantage of everything you can and be aggressive about it. But it's really tough when, with one keystroke, you could get another $4,000 per semester, and you've put the work in. And so I guess I have no interest in going to a weighted GPA system. I think the presentation really made it very clear that the kids stop gaming the system and they're really here for their education when we don't have a weighted GPA system. I think that's so ideal. I was actually very proud of us for that. I'm just wondering, could there be a world where we could do both, and with a formula, just click a button and say, here's this in parentheses. Why is that a no? That's what I'm not understanding.
Because if we have weighted GPA, we have to have a policy that says every single honors class is worth this. Every single AP class is worth this. Every single CCP class is worth this. So the default, the extra work then would come in doing an additional calculation that would unweighted. Like it would have to be weighted. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So we policy, we're
said.
either going to have weighted or we're not going to have weighted. So then if we have the weighted, then that would be the extra step for folks to recalculate. That's the only reason.
We're kind of making the calculation sound kind of hard, but it takes about 5 minutes. I mean, not even, like, you could make a program and it could be done in seconds for every student in the.
I hear what she's
Well,
saying.
it's our
like,
staff though that has to do. We can't do that. Like I can't do that. As
No,
a
I know,
parent,
but there
right?
could be
It's the staff that
I mean,
has to do
just
it.
in the program that you use, right?
Yeah.
Like,
But am I right to say though, then what happens though, is let's say your kid that took the AP and the hardest class route, and maybe we're playing the game here. I'm there's pros and cons to all these approaches, but I could have gone over and taken like CCP classes that were not nearly as challenging, that will not nearly prepare me as well to do anything challenging in college, but we're gonna show up on paper as the same, right?
Yeah, what you're saying is they'll start to shoot, which is the whole reason that non-weighted promotes learning and not gaming,
Right.
is that they'll start to choose classes based on what
Right.
the weighted GPA will be, which I just couldn't put that together on my own. So.
No. It's a shame that some of these systems are, if they're this narrow, and frankly intellectually lazy, that GPA is the only factor that's considered, because others are intellectually lazy, right? Especially in an educational institution, like ACT's not counting for anything, like your course rigor doesn't count for anything. It's just a straight up number, and we pull down the denominator, or if it's a 5.0, we just pull out the 5 and keep the top line number. Those calculations make no sense. If the
some
goal
will
is
use
to
the
get
test-
the most, to get the highest achieving student that's most capable of achieving in college, that tactic doesn't match that goal. I mean, it doesn't.
Like
Julie said, a lot of them do have the or for the test score, but then you're putting it on one test to be better than your GPA over 4 years.
That might stop because then maybe a different lever to pull without like flipping any philosophy on our head that's 10 years old would be, why don't we invest more in test prep? If that would be the great, like, and this isn't a, because we've talked about this, like, if we have this extra money, like, why don't we have like a course or a club or something to get kids prepared for it? High schools do it, tons of high schools do it. ACT. So could that help us even the playing field for our kids? And by the way, like, I mean, for people that have means, you can go get that. But like, I think of when I was in high school, like, that would have been like a big stretch to go get a Kaplan class or something like that. I didn't know if that was that thing. But you know what I mean? But if we could have something that was offered here, readily available for kids, maybe that would help us, especially in the more immediate, you know, with this group that's in high school now, help us level the playing field more.
And we did that, didn't we, at one point? Didn't we have ACT prep offered and it wasn't, people didn't take advantage of it?
We tried to embed it in their core classes and whatnot, you know, so taking the ACT or SAT of course is different than taking the state of courses are differences. So with the Varsity tutoring platform that we're looking at rolling out, there is some coursework in there that'll be available to students for the next 4.5 years. So onus on the student. Sure. How much do they want? So, and preparing for the conversation, back when the high school presented, you know, we did look at pulled random kids and said, okay, so let's have a conversation. You're gonna be in that same bracket that they're getting for the mix. Pleasant surprise, yes, likely. Because that could have gone all different ways, but you know, really, it's showing a true picture of what the kid is producing and what they're capable of.
So then maybe the problem is, like Stacey said, it's the universities or the colleges aren't truly looking at the rigor of the student, they're just looking at a number, a GPA.
I think it's frustrating when you're on this side of it because
Sure.
you're looking at it and you're like, this is so arbitrary. Can't we just put a little formula in there and give the kid because they've done the work, you know, so it's all good. But.
Well, and there's a national association for college admission counselors, and admissions office use them, and they do surveys, and they look at their grades. I don't think they don't say GPA. They look at what did they do, but then they are looking at what courses did they take. So they are looking at the rigor of the courses, and those are the top. So they'll look at the grades in those specific courses. They'll look at their overall. How did they perform overall? You know, are they consistently performing well across their whole high school transcript? And then looking at the rigor of those courses. So getting credit for an AP course. But you're right, it does absolutely nothing when there's an institution that a student has their heart set on and they say, well, sorry, if you have less than 4.5, I mean, that's like, how can a university do that? And like, there are so many schools that don't wait. So they're just not, they're not trying to attract those students. Like that I get it. It's really,
It was surprising when I was going
impossible.
through this because, I mean, we had the question from a parent, and then we've had other parents talk to us, and going through ourselves, I found it interesting. So I kind of just dug through websites, and I really wanted to throw it out there and also just kind of challenge if there's a different way to think about it. But I mean, not really say we had to change, but you know, is there some way that, I mean, like I said, I only went to the next level down, but say you have a 3.6, but you can still calculate like a 4.2. I mean, you could be over $30,000 on the table at some of these universities, private or whatever. But you know, if you go like 2 levels down of their listed scholarships, it can really add up. So just for our, you know, our families and constituents, wanted to see if we could put our heads together a little bit on a solution. But I'm with Beth too in the presentation high school gave, especially like, you know, I have kids in band and jazz band is back and some of these other things like that, you know, and other arts classes that are, you know, making more well-rounded students. So
Mary offered some level to try to do things when there are circumstances. So I don't know if this is a case, right, where like the student's own, their guidance counselor is reaching out to a school to talk specifically about America. Like, look, we don't have weighted grades, but this is, I can send you the curriculum, I can send you this, like, this is what they're doing, so that that school can look at that student and say, you're right. So if they were on a weighted, they'd have it. And so they're willing to do that.
Easy, but it's not. So yeah.
Well, I guess I would say if we could somehow make this conversation, if we could elevate it, you know, because to a place where it's public. I know we put out our public meeting video. I just used the one last month for my absence, but if we could promote the fact that it's on this, because there is a large constituent of parents that approach me, and I think that we're going to get a lot of questions on this. So,
Wonder, Julie, if it's something that like Mary and Chris could work into, even like freshman orientation and things like that, just to kind of start building that or socializing the philosophy and the why behind the what. And frankly, like, let's get real about the choices you make for the next 4 years. You know what I mean?
Well, and actually, that's not the study now. Like, it's
Oh,
not even.
yeah.
and that's
not
why,
even like,
because
so that's that conversation that
To dictate.
to take algebra,
Yep.
they're eligible by their performance supported by the So,
Yeah.
And CCP is eligible in some place too. And if it counts, they want it for free. It's got to count for both high school and college credit. So, so it's not. It's almost the 6th to 7th grade transition. It's not much easier.
which is a tough time. It's like trying to explain to a teenager the consequences they're going to have in adulthood. You know. 'Cause
Yeah, so I would say I would have to study this more to have a stronger, like, knowledgeable information. But I can say from my experiences, a district that weights grades only for AP and CCP, and their justification is because that is content, curriculum set by an outside entity, not by our own teachers. So we do not weight honors, is what the district says. We only weight those CCP and AP. The other thing that district does is they offer several courses, high school courses, to middle school kids, in addition to the eligibility for CCP. In their program of study, it says any high school credit earned prior to entry into ninth grade is accepted for credit, but without a grade. So that does not go into their GPA factor. So if a kid wants to take a risk and take Spanish 1 as an 8th grader, and they realize, well, this language thing is like, I'm a good student, but learning a language is a different part of my brain, and I didn't do as well as I thought, they now don't have a B or a C hanging on their transcript for the next 5 years. They have the credit that they got Spanish 1 credit, but no GPA implication. So
That's we do that currently. Or
no,
are you
we do
talking about-
not.
Tim
No.
will allow like an 8th grader to, I know this, that an 8th grader to retry. Like say you took algebra 2 or I don't know, whatever you take in 8th grade, algebra 1, and if you like weren't happy with your grade, like you can retake it so that you don't get punished for essentially taking challenging yourself as an 8th grader.
So that's another way to remove a limiter for kids to challenge themselves as a 7th or 8th grader. Hey, I know I'll earn the credit, but it won't affect my GPA. And then a different district near to us, they don't weight grades. They add like difficulty, additional GPA points. So if you take an AP or a CCP, I think they add 0.125 to your GPA. So if you're a straight A 4.0 student, then you're a 4.125 student because you took that difficult class. And I don't know, again, I'm going to have to research it, but I don't know if they say up to 8 classes, right? So that would be a whole GPA increase of like 1 unit. But that could be another way to protect against gaming the system where I'm not going to take any more electives because it's going to lower my GPA average. But we're recognizing that additional effort of AP or CCP by giving them those additional points. So
Can you like with the CCP? Is there a way to kind of like, if it's honors, AP, CCP have to kind of be on level playing field by statute? Is there a way to distinguish between CCP that's at least on a subject that's core versus like basket weaving, or and I think that was ultimately the thing that was hard to like swallow, right? The example or the urban legend locally is like a yoga class became like that was taught at Firelands became like the thing people did so that, and they'd be bypassing like AP physics for it,
But I thought we had stuff in place to stop that from happening. If you want to take CCP, but that class is offered here at the high school, you're not approved to take that CCP class. I thought that we had things in place.
Well, in the state information they presented, it said it's the same course department as what we offer at honors classes. So if we offer math, anything that says math at BGS or whatever college has to be honors, but it doesn't mean stuff in other departments have to be honors. So if we have math, English, the four core, those departments in the college are the ones you would give the honors in. But you don't give an honors in an elective class, so you can't get a random elective college honors.
So there's a lot to this conversation, right? There's a lot. And I think where I'm understanding it's coming from a dollar perspective, specifically parents who are looking at specific schools where the perception is, and maybe the reality is, right, there's money being left on the table. As the state works on this, when we look at core curriculum, we look at AP topics. I mean, there are some, but it's a very college prep, right? So now we're going to be distinguishing, hey kids, if you're on a college prep track, you're worth more. You get a higher GPA than the kid that goes to EHOVI, the kid that's preparing to go to the military, the kid that's going to go straight into the workforce. So now that kid would not necessarily, right? So there's just bigger implications for it.
Argumentatively, though, they're not as reliant on their GPA for those avenues as a collegiate-bound child. Does that make sense?
I mean, maybe. I don't know. I don't know.
All right. Well,
I liked some of the thoughts you had. Maybe look what others do. Like,
yeah.
I guess I was just kind of like asking, keep brainstorming and not just like close the door and say we're done. But
I want to see trends.
Yeah.
Like, are schools moving towards weighted? Are schools moving more towards unweighted? And I'd want to see what do universities who say, well, if you have above a 4.3, you're eligible for this. Great. And what is your solution for a school? What do you do for a student who's coming who doesn't have that opportunity?
I can tell you the answer to that. Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, if that were the
wouldn't
case,
send my
then,
kid.
then equity among school districts, we'll just start with public school districts, when we get into the private school districts, would be out the window. You would have no ability. I mean, Walnut Hills in Cincinnati, which I only know about because I live there, #1 high school in the country, right? They offer probably more AP classes than there are, there's no school in Ohio, probably besides them, that could afford to have those class offerings, right? So here we are, we're a, barely 400 kids school, right, in a small town. How would we ever compete? How would our kids ever compete if that is the rules of the game, right? Because you wouldn't even be in the same ballpark with schools like this, much less the St. Joe's or St. Ignatius there's got to be for some of these schools. And I know Mary talked about, at least with more of like the really high academic schools, like your Ivies and things like that they actually have school profiles that like look to say, like, keeping it real, what does hard look like at Huron? Keeping it real, what does hard look like at Walnut Hills? Because we know we've got to have some way to like create, I know people don't like this word, but like create some sort of equity in a system that is inherently inequitable. Because otherwise money would run everything, right? I mean, so I don't know. I mean, I don't know for sure. And like I said, I don't know what's on the website versus how it's reality, but man, that's like I gotta wonder if an institution only cares about your GPA and no other factor.
On the admission side, they do, almost all of them do say we look at the whole student. But when you click over to the scholarship side, you got to have this number, this number, this number.
But if they want you, they're gonna help you afford it. So I mean, there's those two.
Right, but that's
Analysis
where you got to
goes
get on
hand
the
in
phone
hand.
with them, and you got to
Right.
email with them, and
And
like,
through different avenues,
you know.
like you were saying. It's just, it's just perfect conversation. That's all.
Absolutely. I think it does. I think what we want to do what's best for our students, what's best for our families, our district. I think that's why I asked Chris to present this, because I think it's good that we're continuing the conversation. The real issue out there. So, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for
No problem.
presenting it, and I don't know if there's action points that need to be taken from this conversation, if there's anything further that,
I would say Chris's research was excellent. I'm sure that took you a little bit of time. But so does the board want me and the administrative team to continue to do more research on what are our comparable districts or our neighbor districts doing, or is that,
I thought we were already doing that. I mean, because,
well, we did it for the presentation.
because that was the whole crux of this change 9 years ago, was this is what all the area districts are moving toward. We're moving towards the cum laude system because all the area districts are moving towards that.
That's different. That's another different thing.
Right, but that's how it was sold.
Yeah. And
9 years
and
ago.
that is true.
And I don't believe that that is the case. I don't believe all of our area districts are moving towards a 4.0. You know, so I don't think that holds water. But I think, you know, if I was a parent of a child applying to college and because of a point something number, I wasn't getting money that I could have gotten, I'd be concerned or
I doubt
frustrated.
it's the last year this question's gonna come up. Even if we maintain the system, I like the idea of addressing it proactively. There's a website, yeah, that we could say, hey, go look at this information here, and if you
Ask your question from last night. I think it's posted in your presentation before. 4 points for education, so they just have to know how much they spoke from. So it's not.
I was under the understanding that that conversation was put on a public forum, and I didn't go looking for it. So I think at the very least, I think that information should be out there, or we're
So-
gonna stay busy answering.
So it sounds like we should attempt to make like a 1-page executive summary of what we do and why we do it,
the very least.
at the least. And then from there, we can bring it back to the board to review and sort of like pick apart and say this makes sense or this doesn't, and see where we go from there.
I know in the presentation, other local school districts were referenced, but I mean, even if it's just for the board meeting or something, like, can we have like a summary of that somehow, or at least like, because it was just like, oh, this school district does that, this school district. Like, I don't think we actually had like a comparison kind of simple table or something.
Some effort now might really, save a lot of work.
All right, so we'll work on that and
Thanks for
circle
listening.
back.
Absolutely, thank you for all your work. Right, any other new business? Yes.
I know I'm not supposed to comment this, but on further review of the pictures,
Oh no.
we need to put them on somebody next to
Oh, you're
So can I make a request? Could we table this particular exercise for our next meeting? And I will dress appropriately. You wear whatever you say. But like, I'll rethink my wardrobe. And then perhaps nobody will be closing their eyes because my jeans will be distressing.
Sure.
Would that be okay?
Yeah,
Do you
that's
mind
perfect.
rocking the tie one more?
Oh, I want you to be comfortable in how you're being presented, so if you would prefer, absolutely.
You like not to be
It's no
super
big deal.
but yeah.
If we don't need it timely, maybe build up. To end on a really positive note too, in new business, I was just randomly talking to a community member the other day, and she was commenting on how much fun the parking lot is. It's just a frivolous thing, but it makes people smile. So it's kind of cool.
So many good.
Yeah, the parking lot's awesome. It caused kind of one friction where because the
The
spots are
juniors.
no, because the spots are painted, it's understood
Can't
like
find
that's
parking.
that student spot. And so what we didn't realize is there are times a day where there's so many kids on campus that we're really tight on spots, and so they're
But
they're
not the seniors who have the painted spaces because they
correct,
do
yeah.
CCP.
So
So
they'll
there's all
bleed
these
into the
empty
staff spots
spaces.
before they'll go on a friend's painted spot. So we're working through that just so that.
They need to text their friend and be like, "Hey, I'm."
Can I- yeah.
I'm
So, but we're working on that just so when visitors come to the building, they have a space. And there are 3 visitor spots, but if you have a bigger event, it can get filled up pretty quick. So, but yeah, no, they're awesome. The kids did a lot of hard work on that.
It was fun.
I know this year was the fall. We're looking, it would be like more of a summer project. So when the school year starts, they're up and running.
Yeah, I think they meant to get it earlier to run
Yeah,
it.
and
And
it was
shout out to
first year
Kelly.
for it.
She was
Oh my
there. She
gosh.
spent a lot of man hours on it.
She did. Yeah, she did.
We have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved. Second.
Mrs. Henners?
Yes.
Mrs. Hartley?
Yes.
Dr. LeFay?
Yes.
Mr. Rager?
Yes.
Mrs. Mass?
Yes.
Thank you.